You might know the brand, but you might not necessarily know my story. So the first third of the segment is going to be based upon that. I believe that I was put on this earth to serve people, right? That's why I jumped into retail. My first job was in my grandmother's dressmaker shop. I was cutting patterns, greeting the doors, making coffees, that sort of stuff. Growing up, retail was, seen as basically a layman's job, right? Everybody was doing IT. I really liked retail, so my first job at 14 was in the retail industry. I bounced around. I did a degree in IT, thinking that that's what I wanted to do, okay? 20 years of retail. I did about 5 or 6 years in IT, all up in my life, but 9 years of Saintside. Coming into about, my mid-20s, growing up, finding myself a little bit more, I realized that IT fucking sucked, and I didn't want to sit in a cubicle. It felt like a prison cell, wearing a shirt that I fucking hated, shopping at fucking Roger David and shit. And basically, I wanted to do things that made me happy, right? So in my mid-20s, there was a time where I was depressed, anxiety would build up. So I tried to find myself surrounded by things that made me happy. Those things included, and I didn't know at the time yet, but those things included things that I had already been surrounding myself with. So turned 18, 19, I got into cars. There was a lot of car clubs at the time, and this was very, very early. This is before Facebook, this is before forums. You put message boards up, you throw something online, you literally leave for a week, come back, see if anyone fucking answered it. You might have 2 responses. These days you put something on Facebook, it's like bang, 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 bang. So at the time, I found myself at an early adoption of the car community. There were car scenes. NissanSylvia.com was one of them. I became a moderator. I started planning. Shout out to Yo-Yo. From there, I was also into hip-hop, Australian hip-hop, sneaker collecting, and streetwear. In 2001, I started uni. A lot of my friends went to Japan. There was a big buzz about Nova. And they were sponsoring kids who had done 1 year of uni to go back to Japan, or go to Japan, teach English over there. I was into streetwear and sneakers by this stage. There was nothing. There was literally nothing at this stage. You go to the city in a pair of Jordans, you'd be lucky if anyone knew what the fuck was going on. You find in 2001, all my friends have gone to Japan, and they are literally telling me about all these cool brands, Babe, Supreme, and all this other stuff. They started sending things back. I was getting addicted. 2002, 2003, you had local movements. Out for Fame magazine. Who remembers Out for Fame magazine? Maybe 1 or 2. They were really early on a lot of things. They had a sneaker section. 2004, you had... I'm going to go back a couple here. 2004, you had Sneaker Freaker. That's the logo. 2004, you had Sneaker Freaker, and that was the biggest thing for me, because Sneaker Freaker had amalgamated all of my interests. It brought together photography, it brought together hip-hop, brought together sneakers, streetwear, into one thing, and I branded it, Sneaker Freaker. They were through parties, you could come, you could network, you could see other people that were interested in the same thing as you. This was, again, pre-Facebook. So what happened was I was super inspired by what he was doing, and other people like Hans DC and Mafia, DJ Mafia, and all these other creatives at that time. I wanted something of my own. And I was interested in cars, I was interested in sneakers, music, sports, classic cars. I had already been doing bikes up, and I was playing around with the screen printer with a friend. 2005, about 2005, we did our first tee, we did 30 units, we went to a breakdance gig, and we sold all 30 units in one day. It was like $40 a pop. I thought, this is sick. You come home with $1,000. I can do this. Fuck IT, right? So what happens? We didn't have a name in 2005. I got a brand called X. X being the opposite of Nike. Nike's a Nike tick. It means everything that's right with the world. I started a brand that had X, meaning X was negative, right? I started to work away at this. I found other creatives at the time that had other brands, and we brought it together in a space in St.Albans so we could all work and bounce ideas off each other around 2005. We started to work from this space, And about 2 years in, people started to come to this space. Now, initially, this was just for us to work from. It wasn't necessarily a store. But people would come, pick up a tea from myself or one of the other people there. And before you know it, they expected us to be there, right? They expected opening hours. They expected us to have a set timetable when we were there. And we're like, what the fuck is going on? We're trying to go out and have lunch, and people are calling the phone to say, hey, we're at the store, there's no one here. We're like, what fucking store? We just sold you t-shirts last week on Gumtree. What the fuck are you talking about? They're like, I'm at the store in St.Albans. Right, I see what's going on. So, we call the store Saintside, right? Which is basically a combination of everything that we were interested in at the time. Too far. St. Albans, Saintside, west side of Melbourne. Chopping and Locking was a throwback to the whole pop lock scene in the 80s and breakdance and hip-hop and things like that. 2009 was the year we started. The Machete and the Club Lock are different stories that I'm going to write a book about altogether. But they are an amalgamation of the car community and gangster shit, right? We were really big into the gangster shit at the time. St. Albans is known for its hard-working suburb and a lot of people that make money without knowing how to read or write. This was like the champion of the store, right? So we didn't have necessarily a product range. We were just calling it Saintside. Before you know it, we pretty much bring it down to two things: clothing and bicycles. This is a shot from one of our events from 2015, as you can see on the t-shirt there. We start specializing in clothing and bicycles primarily as two things that we're really, really interested in. At this stage, this brings back to all of the networking I've already been doing for 5 or 6 years. So I've been in the car community, I've been in the Oz hip-hop scene, I'm helping out for fame with photographers and cars for car shoots, I'm going to sneaker freaker events. I didn't know it at the time, but I'd been networking in 3 or 4 different scenes that I was really interested in. And it brought it all together, it's Saintside, right? And what I'm trying to say with this part of it is that I was a dickhead beforehand, but I tried to be nice to people over these years because a lot of these people came back and supported me when I first started this business. At the time, it was a business, but also a community. We did fuck all money for like 4 years. I did 10,000 hours without paying myself a single cent, right? So we're making product, we're putting it out there, we're making not enough product to really make money or anything like that. So fast forward to 2009, what we've done is we've built a community to know that whenever we drop something, it's going to sell. At the same time, we want to give back to that community. So we start throwing events and parties for them for free so they can come and drink. We can hit up the liquor spots and say, hey, give us 10 cases of beer. We're going to throw a party. They say, cool. We drop a tea, our friends come, they drink for free. That's the sort of get-up that we had at the time. That's been thrashed now. It's very hard to get liquor, but that's what we sort of started with. And what happened was we started to pick up traction because we gave our community a name. So Saintside was the name. From there, we got lucky with a few things. We pushed some product, and people started to resonate with our designs, like the winners in last place, fuck every cunt. Things that meant good things to people in that area. So winners in last place, for example, I had a customer come in. He lost like $500 on the dogs. He was going to the TAB. He dropped $500. And he goes, I just lost $500 on the dogs. I'm like, that's cool. You don't have to buy a t-shirt if you want it today, man. He's like, no, fuck it. I'll buy a t-shirt as well. And it made me laugh because he'd literally just dropped $500 on dog racing and he still wanted to feel good, so he came and bought a t-shirt. And that's where that slogan came from, the winners in last place. And we got lucky with a few designs. We kept making money. We got an opportunity to open up our city store in 2011. There's a shot of Mike there at Kojo Wild's launch. The city store sort of solidified the fact at this point that we could do anything. We started as a pop-up, we signed a 3-month lease, we were making good money, we were building a community, but the community started to differ. You had a St. Albans community which, no bullshit, was held up literally by drug dealers and tattooists, cash businesses, to a store that all of a sudden people knew what was what. They wanted to know about streetwear, they wanted to know about sneakers. And at this point, we started to treat it like a proper business. We put about 35 brands on. So at this stage, no one's really hip to game at streetwear. There's other majors that have got a couple of brands in the store, but they don't really know what's going on. So we start focusing inwards. We start putting more brands on, looking after our own, trying to treat it like a proper business. building our communities in both St. Albans and the city. It was about Christmas of 2011 that we ran a Boxing Day sale. We said like 70% off everything in the store. And people came and literally only bought Saintside, right? So we had all these other great brands. We had Illest, Undefeated, Edwin Japan, Momotaro. We had a massive brands list. No one really gave a shit about anything else except for our own brand. Most of our own brand was actually still full price, and they still bought it, right? I'm just going to apologize. If I come across as arrogant, please don't feel like I'm arrogant. I'm just really proud of what we've done, okay? As long as everyone can acknowledge that I'm passionate about Saintside as a brand. So we built on that. That was 2011. At this stage, we'd probably been live on Facebook for about a year. I didn't like the idea of Facebook. I didn't like the idea of Twitter or Instagram. I tried to stay away from it as much as possible, because when you put shit on the internet, as soon as you put it up, it's not yours anymore. People can do whatever the fuck they want with it, right? Like us, we steal designs. We've been doing that since the beginning. We take logos, we flip them, all that sort of stuff. And people were starting to do that to other brands and even stores like ours on the internet. So I tried to stay off it as much as possible. 2011, we started the account. The same year we opened the city store. And we saw some traction. By then, Facebook had already worked out their algorithms, so we didn't really get too much traction, if that makes sense. People that early adopted, they got on there, they got likes, and people shared it and all that sort of stuff. By this stage, Facebook knew how to make money, so they were trying to get as much money as possible out of that. This is a couple of our pages, and then a perfect example of what I mean, right? Top one is our Saintside St. Albans store. Middle one is Saintside City Store. We separated them so people can give us feedback on each individual store. We can check out each community. The third one, I don't know who the fuck this is, right? This is like 1,000 likes, and he's just some random who, and I'm trying to be nice to him. I constantly message him, hey man, let's bring all the pages together. We can use your likes. I'll give you some free product. Never responds. Sees my shit, never responds. This is a perfect example of what that's about, right? Saintside's on fucking Alibaba now. You can go and buy a t-shirt. We sell t-shirts for $25. They do a t-shirt delivered for $25. Why the fuck are they bothering? But they still have it on Alibaba, right? So we push. We do more with social media. We start pushing through Instagram and everything else. We try and utilize as best as possible, right? The funny thing is that from 2009 to 2011, retail was not really supposed to work. So the recession hits, a lot of brands are closing, Huff's closing its doors. There's a whole bunch of stores that I looked up to in the US, brands that had great labels, 2 or 3 stores, and they're closing down. You had a couple of people that we were working with, Blackscale, for example, they were opening up stores. So we thought, okay, we can keep going. Facebook is not necessarily working for us. We are too obscure, we're too niche. We can't necessarily run ads and end up with, a sale at the end of it. And it doesn't really build community. What builds community is the touch points. People coming into our store, people meeting the crew. And literally we're that flexible with it that we were taking people to dinner, right? We would literally go to their birthdays and some occasions their weddings, sometimes on one occasion a funeral. And that's where everything sort of hit home. So I think it was 2011, 2012, there was a young kid named Jimmy who was actually buried in Saintside, right? And his auntie sent me an email saying how him and his friends used to get dressed up that weekend, or every weekend, and they were really excited to come into the store. And that really resonated home with me that it wasn't necessarily Facebook, it wasn't necessarily the socials, even though this was a beginning technology to sort of market your business and advertise your business. It meant shit all to these kids because they were dressing up. They were fixing their hair, get in the car, 5 dudes, Commodore, come down to Saintside, chill. We had an NBA Jam machine at the time. It was pretty ill. You could play games for free. I didn't charge for that shit. So we pushed more through the fact that our touch points were the strength of it all, right? We worked through it. And Eckhart Tolle, who's a dude that talks about philosophy and other things, unforgettable experience means more, right? You got 2 things. You got the money and the memory. I can pay for likes at this stage. Everybody's paying for likes on Facebook, on Instagram, sending shit to influencers. But it means shit, right? If I'm nice to someone, I make them feel good. They come in, they buy a t-shirt, they leave feeling good. They're going to tell their friends about us. the community grows. So that's kind of what we focused on. I made sure myself, doesn't matter what was happening at home, all the burdens that I was carrying didn't reflect to the customer or the member of our community, right? They would come in. And I made sure that as we grew with the city store and other projects that we had, that the people that were on our team, customer facing, talking to our community, were just as equipped, right? I never actively hired anybody. I didn't put an ad out. Didn't say I needed this. Didn't say I needed a graphic designer. Didn't say I needed a retail staff. I literally hired people that were my friends, that knew our community, had been around our community, and in most cases started off coming through Saintside to join our community. So this is a shot from our Sydney pop-up last December. It's a bit grainy, but you can sort of see just a group of people all in Saintside out the front of Tech half-sleeve store. This shot sort of brings together 9 years of taking people from Sydney out to dinners, 9 years of taking people from Sydney out to shows, putting them up at your house, you know, sending them gifts, looking after them when they want to say, I'll pay you in 2 weeks and all that sort of stuff. So when we ran the pop-up in Sydney, we did a t-shirt, like a collabo t-shirt with half sleeve. It was just a t-shirt, right? The t-shirts aren't important, but the fact that you can put something together and pay your bills and have fun with it, that's the important thing. And make yourself feel good in the mind, right? So we did a t-shirt that said scumbags across the front. So it had a logo at the back. We went to set up the store. We left. We got fish and chips. We came back. The night was supposed to start at 7 o'clock. The teas had already sold out at like 6:15. And we got there at 7. Hey, where's all the t-shirts? And fucking 3/4 of them are gone. People are coming and like, what the fuck is going on? We can't get t-shirts. It sort of showed that this is Sydney. This isn't St.Albans. This isn't the 3021 where we've been talking to people, you know, over and over again. We didn't have as many physical touch points, but we had a combination of 9 years of touch points. And we grew because there's a western suburbs in Sydney, just like there's a western suburbs in Melbourne. There's a western suburbs in Brisbane and Perth, just like there's a western suburbs in Melbourne. And our network of cars and hip-hop, listening to Tupac while cruising around, getting drive-through, there's a dude in Sydney doing the exact same fucking thing, right? So we used all of those touch points, and we did the pop-up. The pop-up was a success, and our community grew in Sydney. It grew to the point where we could, you know, run 4 or 5 days of business, sell t-shirts, sell out of t-shirts, and continue to grow from there. And it all came down to unforgettable experiences, right? I didn't have to pay for likes. I think a lot of that shit is still fickle. What was the main thing here was the memories. People were coming out. They were literally staying with us, going out to dinner, meeting us at events. And we were really caring for them. We were making friends. We were not only networking, but our community was strong. The other thing to take away from here is that when people were liking social media, they liked the page and they moved on. Nothing really meant anything past the click. Click takes 2 seconds. We had ambassadors here. We had champions here. So when they were wearing a Saintside tee and someone else was wearing a Saintside tee, yeah, 2 strangers making friends, right? I hear of stories like that every week. I'm wearing a Saintside tee at this event, or I'm in fucking Bali and I'm by myself and I'm late on a plane and all of a sudden someone else is wearing a Saintside tee and we're the best of friends. We ended up sending a couple of products to a guy in the States. His name is Kevin. He's a traveling salesman. Goes around all around the States. Every time we fuck up an order, we make sure we comp him with some free stuff. You know, we talk cars. I gave him the time with emails, all that sort of stuff. Half of the time it's just about being friendly. When we do a sale in the US, there'll always be a little message in the notes. Kevin told me about Saintside. We're doing shit to Atlanta, doing shit to Miami. Kevin told me about Saintside because I give Kevin my time. Kevin would send me car pics, blogs, things that I'm interested in, he's interested in, and it's a more meaningful touch point, right? So whilst we used the social media as best as possible, Facebook and Instagram, nothing replaces good old-fashioned customer service. However, people in many instances love to be treated like shit. There's a whole lot of brands out there that treat people like shit, and for some reason they get away with it. They make you line up for 3 days and all that sort of stuff. We were never really fucking with that too much, but there are brands out there that have had success off that. So I know what works for us. There are a lot of other successful brands out there that don't ship your shit, make you wait in line, treat you like shit when you're in, tell you to get fucked when you finish your sale and all that sort of stuff. You don't even know their name. But people love that sometimes, right? After a while, we were building our community to the point where we continued to give back. So we ran events. We ran events at the city store. We ran events with our John Street Show and Shine because we were seeing all these people one-on-one. People would come into the store, our community would come into the store, we'd spend an hour with people, but they weren't coming together. And that's kind of hard to do in the physical realm. You can do it on forums, you can do it on Facebook pages, but to bring it all together in the physical, you need to give everybody a time and a place to sort of come out. It started with our bike shows at the John Street Show and Shine. That started with 20 people at the first show about 8 years ago. And it continued to grow. We saw bikes come and go one-on-one, but once we ran the show, everybody came together, right, as a proper community should. You come by yourself, you leave knowing 50 people. The following year, you come, you know 50 people, you leave knowing 200 people, and it continues to grow. When we started our John Street Show and Shine, we put together our elements: music, hip-hop, streetwear, bicycles, cars. People came, it continued to grow. By about the 5th year, police were involved. They came, told us to stop doing these events because I was going to get threatened with a public nuisance fine. People in John Street, if you've ever been to St.Albans, it's a small strip mall, 100 metres long. For that day, people couldn't move because you literally had cars that just parked up and taken over the street for 4 hours. And we said, we want to still do this. We want to still work with it because we've come so far. So we literally sat down with Vic Police, the Fire Brigade, Brimbank Town Planner, Vic Roads, Events Management, Brimbank, and we tried to do a proper formal event. For the next few years, it grew. It was a fucking costly event to do, believe me, but it grew. And then this particular event here, this was sanctioned by Preston Council, who were trying to activate Preston Market, right? Preston Market were going to get redeveloped, and they were going to put high-rises, and they got their backs onto the train station. And when we sat down with the original project manager, they said, we want to turn Preston Market from dim sims and potato cakes to like banh mi and tofu. And I went, fuck. That's a real confusing thing to sort of take in and make into the physical. So we put together an event. Again, we just knew what we were doing. We know cars, we know music, we know a DJ. We put together the slab. They were licensed, that's why we called it the slab, right? Slow, low, and banging. It brought the car community together, but also gave you a chance to sort of have a beer and sort of check out your cars and listen to some music. When I was putting this together, I went and saw someone from a PR agency, and I said, this is what we want to do, because I was a little bit out of my depth. When you're talking St. Albans and John Street, we'd already done it for 5 years. I said, this is what we want to do. Somewhere along the communication, they thought we were approaching them to say, plan this event for us. And he basically said, how much are you prepared to pay for this? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, if you want us to do this event, it's going to cost you 50 grand. So 50000, right? 50 grand, that's what he would do it for. And I thought, fuck me, we've been doing events for 5 or 6 years, entertaining a whole bunch of people, not paying likes, we're just putting events on so people, our community can have a good time. And there's dudes out there that will charge 50 fucking grand for this. 50 grand, that's like a year's wage, right? And I said, no, we'll do it ourselves. And it made me realize that when I had that conversation, he said, look, you're going to get 1,000 people out of their homes. You're going to get them dolled up. They're going to get their partners and their families together. They're going to drive from wherever suburbs they are in Melbourne. They're going to come to Preston Market, which is closed on a Sunday, and they're going to enjoy music and food, and they're going to spend money, and they're going to come out, and you're doing this because of Saintside. And I said, yeah. He said, that's worth 50 grand. I said, you got to be fucking kidding me. These things wouldn't happen. They wouldn't happen. If you're going to spend $50,000 on an event, it wouldn't happen. So we do these things purely out of the passion of it. A lot of the times it runs in the red. It doesn't even come close to 50 grand. It still costs tens of thousands of dollars to run. But we do them because the community's been good to us. And we want to give back to the community. So now we run 2 separate events and we run half a dozen parties through the store. So our community that we've built after 9 years can continue to grow and network. Kind of like what Marcos and Adrian do here in a more social platform. So we continue to grow that as best as possible, right? This is the other part of it that is literally 100% community. Waste your time because kids know how to get on your nerves. We also repair a lot of bikes for free, right? So the little guy on the right, there's Tyler, there's Knock. I forget the kids in the middle there, ducking down. But this part of the business, I'm really passionate about because I grew up on a bicycle. These days, a lot of the young guys are literally stuck on iPads, right? They don't know what it's like to kick a footy and all that sort of stuff. So when I see a kid on the bike, I love that shit. Most of the time, you'll see 3 or 4 kids rolling a bike through St.Albans, and one poor dude will be running, trying to keep up with his mates, right? Out of breath. So what we started to do was collect the occasional bike and tell people if they have old bikes, bring their bikes to the store, and we'll fix them up. And we'll give them to that poor kid who's running, right? All of a sudden, we start getting 2 bikes a month. We start getting 3 bikes a month. So that's enough. That's perfect. There's a lot of these families out in this area that haven't got a dollar spare. I saw someone 3 weeks ago fighting over $2 with his mate out the front of the shop. It was fucking $2. They were yelling at each other, like at each other's throats. They were going to kill each other. $2, right? A lot of these kids' families, they don't have that. So if we can build a bike, we can get it for free, first of all. It doesn't cost us anything. I throw a tube in, $8, lubrication, couple of bucks. Maybe you spend an hour on it. I get that kid rolling. He's going to grow up. He's going to have a bike. He's going to get into cars. There'll be a whole bunch of positive shit happening after that, right? Because he's not going to be the dude being made fun of running behind the rest of his mates. This part of Saintside in our community is purely off just myself, a couple of other guys, a couple of the bike builders that are involved in the store to get these kids active out in their neighborhood. This is where you can't put a price on the shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, this kid's going, the reason I've got a bike is for Saintside. He doesn't get it now. He'll get it when he's 20. You know what I'm saying? Like, he'll get it when he's 25 and think, man, the whole reason I got rolling was because of these 2 words. It's not because of me. It's not because of the other people that donate their time or their parts or anything like that. But this is the part of it that you can't put a price on. Because who knows? And God forbid any kid gets hit by a car, because I think about that shit all the time too. But that's a whole other part of the business where it's not even, they're not coming for streetwear. They're not coming to look good. They're not coming for anything other than the fact that they can run out of their house, jump on a bike and take off. This is another thing I want to touch base on, which was initially our uniform. And if you know Saintside, you pretty much know these 2 garments because they're our best-selling garments, right? The tee on the right is $25. The tee on the left is $35, or the long sleeve on the left is $35. You can go to Colette in France and buy a fucking off-white tee. It costs you $600. You can buy a Gucci tee. It costs you $1,000, right? People know this tee is $25. People know this tee is $35. It's always available. It's the only 2 designs that we constantly restock. People don't wear this tee. They don't wear this because it's fashionable. They don't wear this because it's fucking expensive and it belittles the next person. They wear them because they like those 2 words and they like everything that the community represents. They get to network. I've had people wear them to job interviews and get jobs because they've been wearing a fucking Saints. Ask half of Hype DC. Literally. Ask half of Foot Locker. How did they get the job interview? They fucking knew someone who said there was a fucking Saintside tee on the tram that morning and they fucking got a job. And it literally comes down to that. I've had people utilize the fact that they've lost their job one morning, gone to a job interview the next morning, and one of the facets of the store, one of the hobbies that they've said, I restore bikes. Oh, sweet, I'm about to get married. Can we use your bikes in the photo shoot? Sweet, you're hired. Let me borrow your bikes. Bang, job. Things like this come because of two words, not because of the money, not because of the... It's fucking old English, right? It's not even like I sketched it. It's not a custom font. It's just old English, and it puts it together, but the thing is that people behind it know how powerful it has become. It's got nothing to do with anything else other than the energy and the positivity that the whole thing has literally brought together based on the community, right? This next shot is a recent one of our 2017 John Street Show and Shine, which is that one there. This event 9 years ago would get about 20 people out. You have about half a dozen push bikes. It's grown to a point now where we need to actually close the street off. We have hand-picked cars that come out. People up to the ages of 60, 70 years old, they come out. They're into cars, they're into push bikes. All of the facets of our business are represented for 4 hours on this one day a year, right? You have cars, you have bicycles, you have community. The most important thing here is the people. Without all of these people sort of embracing what we do, all we did was take 4 or 5 different interests, we amalgamated them into one and gave them a name. The thing is that all these people are passionate about that name. So every year this event grows. Our last event meetings with the local council, you had the Lunar New Year Festival, which gets like 80,000 people out. It's the biggest festival in most suburbs, Richmond, Springvale, Footscray. In St.Albans, Saintside is now bumped up to the second biggest festival, which spins me the fuck out because people are coming purely on just enjoying themselves and being happy, right? There's nothing else besides the fact that it's a positive day. The last slide I'm going to bring you is the level of commitment in which people are going to take to sort of protect their community. This last one, all right, this is a homie that's actually got Saintside across his belly. There's about half a dozen people that have got Saintside tattoos, some under the neck, a lot of them have Old English S's and things like that. This is the surreal part for me, because what started as a brand for us, not necessarily a brand, it started as a store, right? It was just a physical, it was a Google Map marker before Google Maps started, Saintside, St. Albans, west side of Melbourne. People started to get tattoos of it. And on top of that, protect it. So you could go to a car show and buy our stickers and all that sort of stuff. It represented the community you're from. I had one particular kid from the western suburbs. His name is Chris. He went to a car show. He walked up to a tent. And there was a bunch of stickers that weren't ours, but they said Saintside. And he had different colours and different fonts. Saintside, Saintside, Saintside. And Chris said to this dude, "What the fuck are you doing? This isn't Saintside." And the guy goes, "What's Saintside?" He's cutting our fucking stickers to make a buck. Doesn't realise the movement behind it all, right? That's the total opposite of where you want to be. You want to build your community so much that it's passionate, people are driven, they're aware of it. And then what happens is, Chris actually puts the hard word on this dude and says, "Pack your shit up and go home." He was that passionate about us. He felt bad for 2 days, came into the store and to tell me, "Hey man, I basically made some dude go home from a car show because he was selling $5 stickers." I said, that's probably the wrong thing to do. You don't necessarily want to get into a fight over fucking vinyl. But it showed me a level of commitment and a level of passion that I'd never expected. And the thing is that it almost becomes like a religion. People are really, really positive about it. They really want to protect it. And that's kind of where you're at. And this shit didn't happen overnight. It didn't necessarily happen with the Facebook and the likes and all that sort of stuff. It happened with good old-fashioned customer service. Touch points, being good to people, making people feel good. Because I felt good doing all of that. Our team felt good doing all of that. Just before I finish, I'm going to give everyone a little gift, and I think Nat's got some stuff there. Nat's just going to pass some things down. And I'll leave you with the fact that we have run slogans for the most part of our business and for our community for 10 years, right? Earn together, eat together, family first, teammates, winners in last place. Pack animals is a good one. If you love dogs, I love dogs. LOFO, I haven't found that shit anywhere. Look out for others, which is something we're running with now, because we're finding a lot of people getting jobs and having positive outcomes from simply being part of the community that we've created. Saintside forever, forever Saintside, fuck every cunt. And most importantly, just be honest with whatever community you're trying to do. Be honest to yourself and be honest to the people. Because a ship is powered from the back, right? I've never been on the photos. I don't need to be. I try to avoid all that shit. I'm not the most photogenic dude. A ship is powered from the back, and a rising tide lifts all boats. They're two sayings that I actually love. When one person does well, everybody does well if they're all on the same team. The last thing that we like to push is RICE, R-I-C-E, Angum if you're Vietnamese, right? Respect, inclusion, comfort, and entertainment. Everybody that's come into the store, every person that's part of our community deserves an equal amount of respect and inclusion as everybody else. Doesn't matter if they're into the cars, into the fashion, into bicycles, into whatever. The second part is comfort and entertainment. A lot of people come out to our events and out to our store to get comfortable, to get away from things at home that might be weighing them down. Because you can have a little holiday in the store. You can spend 20 minutes talking about a new sneaker coming out or a new song or whatever. Or shit like V-Loan that had a fucking issue with sexual harassment and all this other shit. You can talk about things that interest you. And you're like, you get another opinion. It's almost like a modern day pub. The last part is entertainment. Because if you're not entertained, you're just wasting your time throughout the whole thing. If at any point building your community, being a part of a community, makes you feel like a certain way that isn't happiness, there's no reason for you to be there. You don't need to expose yourself to shit. You don't need to. And that's about it. I hope I haven't gone over 20 minutes. Thanks very much, everybody.